Is the camera pointing at us here presenting?
This is what we're seeing. This is the room, that's the camera. So what do you want to see here?
I think people should be able to see the presenter, but I don't know. No?
So you can set it up if that's what.
Oh, I guess they don't have to see the presenter because they're seeing slides. Okay, all right, that's fine.
You can do it.
Good. With that.
Do you want this or do you want the presentation?
Presentation. Okay. Someone's watching it, right? Yes. Okay. You want to? All right, it's on me. I hear it's on me to get this started.
I will watch the chat.
You think we're ready, team? Think we are. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jamie Maciejewski. I'm the Executive Director at Habitat for Humanity here, East Jefferson County, and so pleased to have you out on a sunny summer evening. No, you have braved things and we have people online, and I want to let you know right up front that we are recording this, and there's a little camera that's just sort of sees the room. It will be a small picture because people will mostly be seeing the slides, but if anyone has a concern about that, we could conceivably turn that camera. I think it's kind of difficult to see much except a blur of people. So welcome. We're excited to share with you where we are right now. We have with us several people on the team, and I'm going to be introducing them as we go along. We also have some board members. If you're on the Habitat's board, could you just wave your hand so people know who to say something to afterwards? 4 of you, thank you very much for being here. And they are great for answering questions afterwards. And we also have a couple of staff who are here. Maria, Julie, Bob, any other staff I missed? Thank you for being here. That's great. So you kind of know then who it is that you can direct questions to afterwards. We also have a sign-up sheet in the back, and that sign-up sheet, it's if you want to be on a list to be kept up to date with what's happening. If you're getting emails from us already, but you're not getting special emails about that are updates about Mason and Cedar Streets, right down there, please make sure you send me any updates about this particular project that are separate. We try to let neighbors know in particular what might be happening. Oh, we're going to be moving out the old mobile home and the boats or something like that. Now that's done, fortunately, looking better, isn't it? Yeah, we're glad about that. So I want to start with what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about where are we in this process of planning. We're going to talk about the design process we've gone through and some guiding principles. And we are going to share the draft site plan of what this looks like and what we're proposing for developing on this property, this amazing property. As we've worked at planning, we have really worked to align this with Habitat for Humanity's mission. Some of you are familiar with Habitat and you go, wait, this is not the Habitat that I ever knew. But this mission guides us, and what it tells us is that we are not just about building houses. We are about bringing people together to build homes, yes, but also communities or neighborhoods and hope. And that really is an important part of what has guided our board of directors as they even said yes to this idea, this wild vision in the beginning. This property might look familiar if you've walked the property. It's really beautiful property. It is, we're on the runway. Duck if the airplane comes through.
We have to start again.
We do.
We're not sharing the slides.
We are not sharing slides. Well, there we go. So we are going to back up a little bit here. Glad that people are letting us know that. Thank you
sound
to
is
all who
great.
are online and letting us know feedback. We do want that feedback.
Oh, this is interesting.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay, does it look like we've got a shared screen now, Julie, of slides?
Yep.
Good. Okay. And we're gonna try this. I'm not gonna go all the way back because you've been hearing us and there aren't any exciting pictures except this exciting picture, which shows you what this property looks like and why it's so beautiful and what we want to do with it. So the vision, when people came to us,
You want to use my audio?
sure. Sounds like we should mute the online audience if we can do that. Great, thank you. And we're going to sort of refresh us on what people brought to us when they first came 2 years ago, last month, and said, we really think Habitat ought to do this, ought to think about this. Would you ever consider doing something this big with somewhere around 150 homes, having home ownership plus rental? Do I need to do the admits?
We're still having a slide problem.
We're having a slide problem. Technology is great, isn't it? How many of you did your first Zoom meeting in 2020? Yeah, me too.
There we go.
We'll always remember that, won't we?
That's
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, we're going to see if I can see those slides again. And if I can advance them, that's what will be the trick here. So anyway,
You should be able to advance.
yeah,
This is
see,
interesting.
Showing this slide as being.
Well, apologies, everyone.
that mouse.
You, just use your arrows.
Alrighty. Good deal. All right, so the dream was, could we do homeownership and rental? Could we make it affordable, not just to Habitat for Humanity home buyers who work jobs in this community, but they make lower service worker wages, like people who work at the grocery store and people who work in assistant positions in the school district and so on. Could we also make it affordable for people who still can't afford the $635,000 median house price in this community, and who work moderate jobs, who are nurses, who work as paramedics, who work at the mill, who work as teachers? Could we make it affordable to that? So this vision was to say, could we take this property in its beauty and make use of the connections, all the things around here, this library, the primary school, use the green spaces that are there, design this in such a way that it would be an exciting place to live, really a part of the Port Hadlock community. We have had a very intense planning process from the very beginning on this site. And it's involved a lot of people and a lot of talking. We've had community meetings since May 2022, which was when we purchased it. So what is that, 20 months ago? And we have met with literally dozens of groups and hundreds of people to talk about this and listen to people and say, what do you want? What do you need? And the single common thread that has run through everything, the theme, the thread, has been the lack of housing hurts all of us. Here's some examples that we have heard. Businesses can't expand because they can't hire because workers can't afford to live here. And that is a problem for our community. It's a problem because we can't, as the people who live here, get the services that we need and want, and our businesses that we own and run can't work very well. Our vulnerability during major emergencies. So I think probably most of you know that it used to be a requirement to be in law enforcement or in emergency services in this county that you live in this county. It's not a requirement anymore. The bridge goes down and our firefighters live across the bridge. What do? We are vulnerable. And not only those workers, but now Jefferson Healthcare, people who used to be required to be within a certain number of minutes of the emergency room to respond in a critical incident are not, they can't require that any longer just because of the housing. So that's hurting us, obviously. Young families, how many of you have somebody that you know, your kids or your friends' kids who can't live here, and they've left this community along with their kids, and our school district has lost enrollment, and we can't have people, and young families who would be many of them are workers who start in jobs and come up in jobs and be our leaders for when the rest of us are retiring and it's not working very well. I will say that also the lack of housing just increases the cost of housing for all of us. If you're in housing that's affordable, there's a good chance that you got in that housing quite a while ago, at least 5 years ago. So those things, we have just heard that thread running through everything. Housing, the lack of it is a real problem. I have loved that this has been a rural community solution. Nobody has been saying, okay, somebody else come in and fix this. This community has come together to figure out how to get across this gap of housing. We have seen local generosity that has really been remarkable. Generosity where people have made gifts that are transformational for this community because they know how important this is, how important housing is. Some of you are here or online, and I just want to say that is a remarkable vision and such a gift to this community and an investment in this community. Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Dean, thank you for being here, for being part of seeing how important this was and setting aside some of the federal funding that came into this county so that we could purchase this property and do the kind of master planning we're doing now. Volunteers stepping up. Did any of you who are online or in this room help with the cleanup of the property? Like picking up trash? I know there have been people in these meetings who have helped with that. There have been people who are serving in advisory roles and everything in between. Volunteers are just really important. And then local businesses and organizations, which you will hear more about their involvement in this, that they have been advising us, participating, helping us brainstorm how is this going to happen. So this is a rural kind of we're going to do this together solution. In August, we launched a formal process to do a master plan. And I want to say what a master plan is and what it's not, what it's really helping with. It is a blueprint for action at kind of a high level of how are we going to move this forward? What are we going to build? How are we going to build it? Who's going to build it? Or what are our options for that? It's going to talk about how we're going to finance it. What's the ballpark this is going to cost? Houses are not inexpensive to build. So how do we do all this? How do we, what are the options that we might have? What kind of timelines does this look like? We're going to have a market study, some research that will be part of this that helps us understand things like What's the balance between owned homes and rented homes? What's the number of bedrooms? I mean, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, what do we need to do here? Are these duplexes, townhouses? Are they, how many of these homes, what kind of a ratio of these? So we'll get a lot of information from this master plan. We are not going to get some things out of a master plan. We are not going to get a whole bunch of details. No house plans are coming out of this, no landscaping plans, no color palettes. We are not going to know the engineering and the materials and so on, but we're going to have marching orders of where we're going. And that timeline is that we expect to have our master plan complete in May, right about there. And that will let us go forward with the next level of details that we have. I loved this team that we're working with, and we have several of you available. Bob Collins is our Director of Construction, Land, and Strategy, comes to us with a great background in planning and corporate work and assets, and has pulled us together in what we do. Fred Kimball, many of you know Fred. He's past president of Habitat. He's also a local builder, mostly retired. Fred is responsible for some of the neighborhoods in Port Townsend that you might be familiar with, most recently Quimper Village, but some others as well, some Ross Chapin neighborhoods. He's on our planning committee. Peggy Webster came to us with a background in redeveloping a large urban housing project on the East Coast. Moved here like many of us do and resettled, and brought her skill set and her knowledge and is contributing that as a volunteer. David Rinn, who's in the back, is on our board. He's Habitat's treasurer. He's got a background in corporate finance and has really been helpful in helping us stay on track and think about the critical questions there. I also am on that group. And we're really pleased to be working with 2 firms, Schemata Workshop and CapEx Advisory, who have joined us to bring in all the knowledge that the rest of us don't have. The skill sets in architecture, in financial planning, and so on, that help us to stay on track here. So I want to talk about the guiding principles that are behind the plan that you might have seen already in the email that went out and what we're going to share in detail tonight. There are really 5 principles that have guided us along this. We have brought these principles forward as a result of talking with those hundreds of people and dozens of community groups. And the first one is that it be affordable, to a wide range of people, all those income spectrums I was talking about. And here's some of the things that it means. It means it's going to be dense. It's not going to be real rural. It's going to be clustered together, smaller footprints of homes, not big ones. I talked about that last time we met, and some of you laughed when I said no 3,000 square foot houses. It is attached homes. We have looked at detached homes versus attached homes, and we've decided that in this neighborhood, it will be attached homes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, what that looks like. We are looking at shared amenities, so not everybody will have their own something of many things. Their own home, yes, but parking will be brought together, and things like trash receptacles and mail and bike storage and things like that will be brought together in shared amenities. It doesn't mean it's not going to be beautiful to be small scale here. It's going to be, I would say you should think of simple but versus ornate, or maybe tasteful versus showy. So I hope that those things have really informed us, and that you will feel like we have stuck with this being a community that's affordable. The second priority that we've really focused on is its local fit. This is Port Hadlock. This is not Sammamish Heights or Seattle or any of those. This is Port Hadlock. It's not even Port Townsend, and it needs to feel like it's Port Hadlock. And that means that it is not going to be as dense as it could be. Even though the zoning could allow up to 205 homes, it's not going to have as many because we need to make this feel like it's in a rural community that it's in. We also want to honor the property. We have heard a lot from people during community meetings about this property and its importance in Port Hadlock. I don't know how often we've been out there walking it and other people are walking, neighbors are walking their dogs. People in some of the meetings said, you know, that path on the south side in those woods, please keep that. We're going to do that. We are. It's going to stay connected to the community. It's not going to have fences all around it that shut it off. It's going to be so that people who are in the surrounding neighborhoods can walk through on their way to school or the library and so on. And as I said, the path in the woods remain. And so we picked a middle route, and there will be about 150 homes in the design that you see. Not too few, not too many. We're aiming for Goldilocks here. Our next priority is family and neighborhood friendliness. Kids need to be able to play there without a fear that a car's gonna come around the corner at a, you know, and take a toll there. So safe. We're gonna minimize car traffic and we're gonna limit the streets, and you're gonna see that they're sharply limited, the internal streets. It's not typical of a design here. We are going to corral the parking into areas, and houses are not each going to have their own driveway. It's a little different. It's more like a cottage community, but a large one. So made up of multiple cottage communities in it. Low fences, I think you can watch for play areas, things. This rolls into green spaces here. What we're looking for, we want to see green spaces. We want to see preservation of trees. We want to see it to be environmentally sustainable. So some of the things that means, the houses are largely oriented to take advantage of passive solar gain. The path is going to stay there, as I mentioned. We'll be preserving those trees at the south side of the property, maybe some others. That helps us protect Chimacum Creek, which is a great thing to protect here. I think a lot of us have been involved with caring about that. We're going to be doing, as I mentioned, attached homes, and I just want to digress for a moment and talk about attached homes. How many of you have seen Habitat's homes on Landis Street in Port Townsend? A few of you have. When we first said that we were going to try some duplex style homes, we had a few people who sort of had really clear skepticism. And what it turns out is that a lot of us have had bad experiences with thin-walled apartments, right? Yeah. So we didn't build them that way. We built them as two separate houses, completely engineered and pushed together. And I will tell you that if you're in one house and someone in the other house is yelling, as long as the door is closed, you don't hear them. And we're going to do the same thing here. Attached doesn't need to mean cheap. It's going to just help us to save some space there and to preserve green spaces. We're going to make sure these are energy efficient homes and environmentally sustainable. And that's just sort of helped to govern it, because we've heard that as being important to the community during our conversations. And the final priority that I'll mention is that we have really wanted to work to make this work for our partner organizations and businesses. Habitat can't build this by itself. This is way more than we've done. We are doing a lot. We finished 11 homes this last year. Yay us. Yeah. still 150 is way different than 11 homes. Yeah, so we need a lot of partners, and we have worked on that with our partners to make sure that it works for employee housing, that there's some rental and home ownership, that we've got adult family home options. In fact, we're going to see some, you'll see that in the design, because we're working with one organization, Olympic Neighbors, that will have a couple of options for adult family homes for intellectually developmentally disabled adults. So just a small number of bedrooms, but mixed into the community, which makes it what a community ought to be, where we all know each other. We are in continuing discussions with organization leadership and businesses, and we'll continue to have those discussions as we make sure that this meets the needs of the people and the leaders in this community. That was just a summary of those, but the last slide I want to bring up here is our preliminary timeline. To remind you, purchased in 2022, have been working and listening in the community since then. We're doing that site and infrastructure planning right now. We expect by the end of this year to begin the design and permitting process on this project, and have been so pleased at the partnership with the county. And I just want to call that out. We've got two of our commissioners who are here and have been so appreciative of not only the support of the board of county commissioners, but also the staff. They've been really super in helping us to think about how we're going to do this. This is different for them. I can tell you that they don't normally permit 150 home developments in Jefferson County. We expect construction to start kind of as the sewer is available, which is the end of 2025. So that sounds like a long ways away. It doesn't feel like a long ways away to me. It feels like a train coming really fast. And then first homes occupied, we think we're looking at 2027. So that gives you a sense that if you need a house today, you're going to have to wait a little while, although we're working on some neighborhoods still in Port Townsend and a couple of homes that are getting started in Irondale. So we're not done. We're not holding everything back. We're working on a lot of stuff. Don't neglect to talk to us if you or someone you know needs housing sooner than this, but this is an exciting timeline to us. I'm going to turn it over now and introduce Mike Mariano from Schemata Workshop, who's here with Ellen Melman, also from Schemata, and to walk us through the next slides. It has been so fun. I just want to say, as he comes up, it is not typical that architects and planning organizations are willing to do something that's permanently affordable for a wide variety of people. I don't know of other developments locally, regionally, or across the country really that do this without including market rate housing in it. And this project is permanently affordable forever, so that people who buy into it now, when they go to sell it, it'll still be affordable to somebody like them 30 years from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. And that is not a normal thing. And Mike, you guys and your team have been so good at being willing to do that. So thank you. And all you have to do is do this. You won't see the slide there, but you'll see it up there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jamie, and welcome everyone. So my name is Mike Mariano. I'm an architect and one of the partners at Schemata Workshop. You've heard from Ellen, and I think you've heard from Grace too, one of the other folks working on the project in the office. We are an architecture and planning firm that focuses on how can we build social connection in the communities that we design. So, I get the exciting part here of kind of walking you through some of this, work that we've been doing with Habitat here. So, just a brief background going back to some of the site analysis that we did. So, we bring our fresh eyes to the project, but your familiar eyes. So, the idea that we can connect with you locally, the outreach that's been going on, the time that we've spent on the site. So getting to know this amazing site and the connection that it has to the existing community, the library, the school, the neighborhoods around it. This was kind of a site analysis diagram that we did. You see Chimacum Creek on the lower left. We've got a heavily wooded kind of steep part of the site. We've got the cleared part of the site, the former airfield. Just tremendous opportunities here. So We started by doing a few different, organizational kind of studies. So looking at a few different options that are actually myriad more than what you see up here. But the first one was option A that you see up at the top. Mason Street is the top, Cedar is over on the right. This was doing a through street essentially. So a street that connects Mason to Cedar. It would allow fire department access. All of the units in the communities would be clustered around that. So if you think about kind of a typical neighborhood, street goes right through it. So the other option that we looked at was doing parking kind of on the periphery, parallel to Cedar and Mason. You see in the middle option there, option B, and clustering the homes kind of in the middle of that. You can see how it becomes kind of redundant to the streets around it. The third option, what we called option C, actually looked at the neighborhood and the connection to the streets off Cedar and Mason, and looked at pulling the parking directly off of that. So the idea of corralling parking, as Jamie mentioned, into very discrete parts of the site. And even in this diagram, you can see that what it does is open up tremendous amount of open space for families on the site. So, I sent this off to Habitat. Bob kind of said, you probably know which one we're going to go with. And I kind of did, but it was good for them to walk through it, us to go through it. I mean, we could have gone in any direction. But option C is kind of where we ended up going. So this is what essentially became the preferred concept. We studied it with kind of clusters of housing. So looking at these fourplexes clustered into kind of what we called, scale of sociability, which is a Ross Chapin term for kind of, an intimate cluster. It's kind of hard to get to know a lot of people in larger clusters of housing like that. So you tend to know people in smaller clusters. So we kind of use that as an example of how we were breaking things down here. But what you can see is housing primarily located on the open space on the site. So again, taking advantage of preserving the trees that are on the site, staying away from that steep hillside, and all the benefits that go to clustering the parking where you see it here. That last sketch became something a little more refined as we got further into it. So, we started to look at different unit typologies on the site. So each of these little white blocks represents different housing types, and I'll get into that next. But what you do start to see on here is the corralled parking in 3 distinct locations on the site. You see that yellow line across the bottom, which is the existing trail system on the site. You start to see some things called out like community gardens, service functions at the heart of the community, kind of at the end of each of these parking clusters, really. And that primary entrance at the very center of the site, the parking at the middle there is intended to be the primary access. So that would essentially be the gateway entrance to the site. The other ones still serve the same community, but they're less of a priority. So really playing up the access in the middle, the pedestrian thoroughfare all the way to the school connection down the bottom. That translated into a little aerial diagram that we did, kind of starting to think through what the houses and the clusters might be. So these are still very diagrammatic. To Jamie's point, we're not getting into design. This is me just kind of really roughly, loosely sketching up some ideas. But what it does is start to tell you that what happens between these homes and in the midst of this community is really important. So starting to craft the space between the buildings with the same care that the buildings will eventually have too. The light green clusters kind of represent some cottage communities that have a focus, kind of green space between them. We've got these little kind of quads in there too, where we've got clusters of homes fronting those two. And then there's a variety of housing that fills in, in between all of those as well. And I'll continue to go through that as we go through the housing typology section here. So again, this is just taken off of that aerial view. So you'll see some of those around the space here. There's these little cottage clusters. So these are duplexes. So to Jamie's point, none of these are single family detached homes. They all have the efficiency of a shared wall. And in this case, we're showing kind of a 1- and 2-story building. They're grouped together. They'd be very compact, but still, having the connection to garden space in the back, a little patio out front, and then bringing people in off of, in this case, Mason Street off to the left. So, this idea that you've got eyes on the street, people come into the community and they feel like they're entering someone's neighborhood. I mean, it really is a neighborhood. This is one of the townhouse clusters. So kind of with this, quad green space out here, the little low-rise building off to the right is one of the group homes. This is a cluster of 12 to 16 homes kind of fronting that green space. all of them have kind of a private backyard area with a low fence or landscape or patio, and then some shared space out front. So the focus really is on providing these residents with connection to their neighbors across the way. So, a very intimate connection of community, within the greater neighborhood here. Townhouse blocks, so this is similar to what you saw facing the quad, but it's not connected to the quad. It actually, in this case, fronts Mason Street. So, we want to make sure that the community has a frontage and a facade to Mason Street that kind of presents itself as a neighborhood and part of the greater community here. The multifamily apartment building is off of Cedar and adjacent to a parking area. So this would be a 3-story building, 8 units per floor, 24 units total, very compact living. Again, to Jamie's point, we build it in a quality manner such that construction is quite high. But you've got access to parking, you've got access to the bus. There's still some access to open space outside, but there's, it provides people with an opportunity to live in an apartment building if that's what they're interested in. Something for everyone on the site. So guiding principles, Jamie went through all these, and I want to talk about how what you see on the boards in front of you kind of follows through with a lot of this. So local fit, the idea of these clusters and townhomes kind of fitting in with the community, and the scale is such that the apartment building is actually kind of down at the south end of the site. Everything kind of as you go north on Cedar, towards Mason starts to kind of step down. So it's a little more intimate of a scale. The footprints of the homes, these are not 3,000 square foot footprints. These are 800 square foot or approximately 800 square feet. Again, we're just playing conceptually here, but the homes are fairly compact and fairly small. Some parking is directly adjacent to some of the homes. Some is a little more distant to the homes. We've been talking about that. There's kind of these orange lines that represent a 30-second walk from nearest parking space to the furthest apartment. So not everything meets that 30-second walk. We've decided that in concept, that's okay for now. The little blue boxes represent, where we might be able to put some accessible parking spaces. So designated for people that really need to be close to their home, so that they could have direct access from parking, to their home. We've got some service functions, again, kind of occurring at the front of each of these parking areas. So there could be wagons or carts, things for people to bring things from their cars to their home. Bicycles and other things could be stored there, kind of kept out of the way, neat and tidy on the site. Family and neighborhood friendly. So there's, a variety of amenities that we've considered, and even more expanded list here. We have a little open pavilion that we're calling the hangar on the site, which could support community functions, just an open shelter, but you could have picnics, you could have events, and tremendous amount of opportunity there. There's a variety of open spaces on the sites. There could be community gardens, there could be private gardens, little pea patches. We've got that fire department access kind of running through the site, but we're really trying to play it down so it doesn't take over and feel like a street. It really feels more like a little pedestrian walkway. Green space, trees, and environment. We really are trying to protect, as much of that tree canopy as we possibly can, that contiguous canopy that really supports the site ecology. Other clusters of trees on the site, we're looking at kind of, siting the building such that we preserve those tree clusters as well. Passive solar design, Jamie mentioned, we have laid out a lot of these in an orientation that allows for passive solar design. Once we get into that stage of the architectural effort, this allows us to reduce utility costs for future residents, for, lower maintenance operation for them as well. Thinking about the site, a little more holistically too, there's tremendous opportunity. You're about to embark on 150 unit development. So it's a big site. There's a lot of civil utilities. There's, infrastructure that needs to be put in place, roadways and things, but keeping in mind that everything you do has a connection with everything around it. So, this whole systems thinking for restoration and resilience on the site. So that, not only is nature and the soil, the water, and the plants part of this, but the economy and the culture of your community is what needs to inform what happens here. So this is a collection of photos that I found on the Jefferson Land Trust website, but just a great reminder of So I was going to do the slides, like I need to find a bunch of great images, and it's like, oh, here they are. This is the community. So the ecology of the site, a living environment, the idea that Chimicum Creek, is not fed by mountains, it's just fed by groundwater around here. So everything you do in the neighborhood has direct impact of that on Chimicum Creek, upstream, downstream health, it's all related. The site, kind of on the left-hand side there, you can see kind of, the neighborhoods around it, the economy, the local economy, the organizations that we've reached out to and will be participating in the project will all have an impact on the site, but then they'll also be reaching out in the community and having a positive impact out there as well. I'm going to grab a glass of water. So continuing on with that conversation of, the site, the ecology of the site, Chimicum Creek, this is a diagram, but it's essentially, your site, the Mason Street neighborhood on the right here, Chimicum Creek, just off the site. So the red line being your property boundary roughly. The Chimicum Creek Middle School students, I was excited to see that they've actually participated in monitoring the health of the water quality of that creek as we get towards restoration of salmon habitat there. So again, thinking about your impact with this site on Chimicum Creek. Again, the upstream, downstream health effects are super critical. What we do on the site with stormwater, how we treat it, how we collect it, how we infiltrate it into the site, that has a direct impact on the health of the creek. The creek has an impact on the site too, because it supports habitat that, birds and bees and pollinators and everything that, that we can support on the site too. So, the homes can have non-toxic rooftop surfaces such that the runoff is not contaminated by, zinc or asphalt surfaces or other things. We can have a pesticide-free and herbicide-free site because it's so critical to that downstream creek. There would be lots of opportunities for green stormwater infrastructure along Mason Street too, so that's something that can be explored. The homes can be, non-toxic, ensure materials and finishes. We can look at prefabricated modular construction, lots of things that we can look at that would support residents as well as the local economy, by tapping into the labor and materials that we can access out here. All this to say, this is about getting residents to care and connect with the community that they're going to call their own neighborhood, get them to care, deeply for their neighborhood. People really do long to belong, and this is a chance for them to live in a neighborhood together. The site program we touched on a little bit. This is just a sample of some of the things that could occur on the site. Jamie mentioned some of these. I've mentioned some of them. You'll see a number of them show up if you look closer at those posters around the room. But what these do is help to activate the space between the homes. So you've got your own home, but then beyond your home is also your neighborhood. So, it's, when people arrive to this site, it's not just the single isolated little home, that happens to be, clustered together with the others, but it's all these other spaces around you that allow you to live a little larger than the home itself. So next steps, we're excited to share this with you, and there are some opportunities to get involved, as I understand it. I'm going to turn it back over to Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So we have time for a lot of discussion, questions. Those of you who are online, you can add your questions into the chat and someone will read them out here. Comments, questions, thoughts. Yeah. And we've got several of us who can answer questions. Yeah, Jeannie.
You have emphasized that the homes are going to be small. In comparison to, say, a one-bedroom habitat home that you have built in Townsend and in little communities that have been smaller than those.
I think the habitat homes that we have currently been building are going to be very similar to many of these. There might be a few that are a little bit smaller. Right now, our 2-bedroom home is 900 square feet. You talked about 800 square feet. So maybe we'll shave it off in some places. A cottage home is typically, I think, Richard, 800 square feet is the maximum, right? For that's 1,200 on the ground floor.
No,
800 on the ground floor, yeah.
1,200.
So a footprint of 800 square feet might be what many of these are, but yeah. So similar to a habitat house, just not sprawling like many of us are used to seeing kind of as the homes that get built typically. Yeah.
In that same vein, are there going to be options for smaller? Say 400.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So Bob, do you want to address that question? Come on up to the microphone here. The question is, are there going to be opportunities for even smaller homes?
Yeah, we haven't necessarily excluded that possibility. The typical square footage that we think of from a habitat perspective is around 550, 570 square foot.
For one bedroom.
For a one-bedroom home. So when we talk smaller, we're talking about a one-bedroom home.
What would a 300 or 400 square foot home be referred to as?
We typically do not build that type of structure.
A 300 or 400 square foot. The question is, what about a 300 or 400 square foot structure? So those are typically called tiny homes. And we haven't planned any tiny homes in this community. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Got
Julie.
an online question, Jamie?
Yeah.
Are residents around the community who are needing housing going to have opportunities to get in on the housing?
Are residents around the community who need housing going to have the opportunity to get in on it? Absolutely. This is aimed at people who live and work and call this area home or need to call this area home. There won't be any vacation homes here. There won't be any Airbnbs in this community. And so if you are living in this area and you are interested, I've talked with people who are looking at downsizing, for example. It's a great opportunity to look at this community. We are not taking waiting lists right now. It's a little bit early for that, but you would be welcome to put your name back there on that list to keep up. Oh, here it is. To keep up with your interest in this and to make sure that we keep you up to date. So you know when we're taking applications.
And primary residences.
And these will be primary residences, right? Not second homes. Yeah, I also should mention about permanent affordability just briefly, that these will all be restricted in appreciation, that in exchange for having a price on the house that is affordable to people, people will agree that they will not have market rate appreciation. Julie.
A question about parking. The parking plan seems to exclude people with mobility issues or wheelchair confined.
Oh, great
please
question.
expound on that one.
So does the parking plan exclude people who have accessibility needs? Absolutely, it does not. You can look at this design. I'm going to back up here and show you that many of these homes front on parking. And the parking is as close to many of these homes as it would be if it was your driveway. It just isn't a driveway. So it doesn't exclude that. It will be a completely accessible community. And we expect Habitat already builds homes to be what is called ADA visitable, meaning there's at least one entry that's 0 steps. And you have a turning radius in the bathroom that accommodates a wheelchair and wider hallways and doorways. All of these homes similarly will have that at least on the main floor. And so we expect this to be a friendly community for that. There will be some homes that are further from parking, but as Mike's drawing showed, it's not much further from parking. So if people expect there to be accessibility issues, we would address that in the location of where they are living on the site. Yeah, I think I might have seen somebody start to ask a question. Yes.
I came in a little bit late, so I apologize. If
No,
I
it's
answered
fine.
this. Just to follow up on that
Yeah.
parking issue, how many parking spaces are planned relative to the number of units? And then also, what will the bus access be? in this area?
That's great questions. Mike, would you like to take that about talking about the number of parking spaces that we're doing 1.5 per unit?
We're parking the site at what's called 1.5 spaces per unit. So there's 150 homes on the site right now, and we've got 225 parking spaces. That includes some parallel parking on Mason Street. Mason Street has a really wide public right of way, so we're taking advantage of some of that. That allows us to have some parking directly adjacent to those homes as well. And then everything else is on the site. Again, that corralled parking kind of preserving open space on the site, but 1.5 spaces per unit was what we determined with Habitat was what we should target for now.
That doesn't mean that you need to drive a half a car. It's just our estimate of what parking will be workable for people.
For the last question.
Oh, the transit, thank you. Transit, right across on Cedar Street, just across from where you see the apartment style building, there's transit. It's a great location for that. And I think as we've talked, transit is here. Do you want to say anything about that? Because if you do, come on up to the microphone. We have someone, Jamie, great name, is here from Jefferson Transit.
Hey there, everybody. So in addition to the stop that we do have on Cedar, I believe our number 6 goes down Mason Street as well. And I want you guys to know that you do have our enthusiastic support of this development. And if we can address making a very accommodating transit shelter on Mason as well, so it would be accessible and walkable for the entire community, that's absolutely something that we would love to work with you guys on.
Do you anticipate that with this many more homes that there might be more change, more frequent schedule or anything like that potential as a possibility?
This year, we're actually going to be conducting a comprehensive route analysis of our current service and the future needs of the community. And being aware of this development going in is absolutely something we're going to take into account and address when we do our route analysis.
Thank you, Jamie.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yes.
I've been talking with some people I know on First Circle.
Yes. Yeah. First Circle right across the street from the main entrance there. Mhm.
And they're concerned about traffic.
Oh, great question.
Yeah, and could you kind of clarify, there's no through driving in there, is that correct?
Yeah, so the question is about traffic and the concerns there. Mike or Bob, do you want to address traffic and what we're doing?
Thanks. So from a traffic perspective, one of the things that's just formulaic is that there will be a traffic study. So making sure that we're adhering to common code and practices relative to traffic flow. I think one of the features of this site, though, is the concentrated parking. And so, no, there isn't drive-through. I personally believe the concentrated parking and the lack of drive-through only enhances the situation relative to cars. If there was a road going through, you're going to have people moving faster and vehicles more consistently. So there's not a drive-through moment, but the concentrated parking, as I said, I think enhances.
3 entrances.
That's correct.
And so traffic wouldn't, I'm just not really sure what they're worried about. I wish they were here, but.
If you talk to the folks again, just have them shoot us a question at info@habitatajc.org. We'd love to have that conversation. And this isn't the last opportunity for us to speak as well.
Thank you.
Speaking to just real briefly, when there's a neighborhood thing like that, if that neighborhood is interested in meeting and talking to us, we'd be happy and really like to make sure it works for everyone around. Julie.
So this may be a bit of a repeat, but slightly different. Is parking per zoning regulations, and could we have less?
Could we have less parking than is on here? We have talked about that and whether we could have less parking. I think that the concern that we've had is that this is a rural community. And many people in rural communities, transit is difficult. It does not necessarily work well with people's work schedules. It's not the same as an urban community. And so our concern is that if we go to fewer than 1.5 per home, that we may have trouble, that people living in those homes may really find it to be difficult, particularly if they're a larger family, if they have children and there's a parent who needs to get kids somewhere at the same time a parent needs to get to work somewhere. So that's where we're landing right now. We are, as has been noted, making use of parking outside of the boundaries along Mason Street. And that helps to reduce the number of on-site parking places because we are trying to not overload parking into this community, but we do need to meet the needs of those who will choose to live here.
One other site plan question, then I have a funding question that was asked a couple minutes ago. Are there plans for an on-site storage facility?
Are there plans for an on-site storage facility? That is still to come, all those discussions, but yes, we do expect there will be some storage on this site. Besides in the individual homes where there will be good storage, we do expect there to be some other storage that would be available, potentially like that would be partly that you might rent it if you needed the additional storage, something like that. What we are trying to be super careful about is that anything that takes up space reduces homes. And so we are trying to prioritize homes, and people who have boats and RVs and things will need to park those elsewhere than on this site. That will just be a need that people will have to consider as they look at this site. So Julie, you had another question.
Yep. So a lot of gratitude in this comment, but the question is, can you share about how the project is being funded and how close you are to having the funding you need to complete the project?
That's how is this project being funded and how close are we? That is a great question. Thank you for asking it, and deep gratitude to those who've helped make this possible. Our master plan is going to help us with understanding some of our options. We will be helped by phasing this project so that we expect to be building over probably 5 years, so that the homes that we build 1 year, as we sell them, that gives us money to do the next year. That said, we are going to need to raise, we believe, about $8 to $10 million on top of what we've already raised as being available money that we will need to work with to do the home construction. We have raised the money, primarily it's in hand for doing the property purchase and the horizontal work. It's either in hand or in pledges, and we will be needing to raise the next level of that money coming up.
What's horizontal work?
Yeah, horizontal means parking, the fire lane, the sewer and the water, the electric in the site, all those things that go in the ground and that you walk on top of. And the vertical is the stuff that you see, the houses that come up. Think of mushrooms. Heidi.
Jamie, in past presentations, I've heard it talked about that there may be community partners that like adopt a cluster or adopt a section of the development. Are you still thinking about that? I've had entities asking if that's still part of the recipe for this development.
Would you like to talk to that?
Sure.
Yeah, the question I'll just repeat as Bob's coming up. Are we looking at other organizations or groups adopting clusters, for example? That's a short version.
Yeah, I love that question. And the quick answer is we might use different words, but yes, the quick answer is yes. Part of the current master plan view that you're looking at incorporates the potential, as I think was previously discussed, for Olympic neighbors. Part of this concept has space that could be used by the boat school. We've spoken to the boat school. We've spoken to various organizations, including the school district, Jefferson Healthcare. And yes, the opportunity for participation is there and we would love it. Our current plan is to use our specific habitat model for 1/3 of the homes, so maybe 50. It would be great if partner organizations stepped in and said, hey, look, I would like to sponsor homes, be it for my organization, and then we sell those homes and make them permanently affordable. So all the homes will be ownership model. The question is, who's going to be that owner and how does it work? So for instance, if there's an organization that wants to buy a cluster of homes and rent them to their employees, students, love that. And more to come on that story. Part of the thing that we have to do through this master planning process is understand the costing, understand what it's going to take from a phasing standpoint. But part of what we're doing in this near term is actually going to feed right to the board and a recommendation to the board. And once we get to that point, we're going to start rolling back out to partner organizations with that same pitch. Here's what it is. Here's how much it could cost. You know, do you want to join? Here's what would be necessary from a financial standpoint from your perspective to be part of the development.
Yes.
Follow up to that. So the houses will be permanently affordable to buy. How do you manage the rental to be affordable if we're allowing other people to be?
Yeah, thank you. The question is, so the owned homes are permanently affordable. How do we make sure the rental homes are permanently affordable too? Habitat will own all the land forever. We will sell the houses, the apartments, those will be owned by someone else. And the ground lease will be 99 years, renewable, inheritable. It will feel like your own land. But it will have restrictions about what something can be sold for in the future or rented for. Yep. These are great questions. Richard.
Are you at a point where you have thought about a mix of unit sizes, like percentage, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and or not really yet?
Yeah, are we at a point where we've thought about the mix of bedrooms? We are right now, CapEx Advisory is working with the firm that's doing a needs study to find out about that, to recommend that. We do need to figure out what's the mix of sizes of homes, 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom. What do you think? I mean, what do you think about the comments about the concept of keeping streets out and making this walkable around clusters of housing? Do you like that?
You haven't even mentioned people visiting or families staying.
Thank you for asking about that. Okay, so what about visitors and what about family who come to stay for a while, and where are they going to park? So that's another reason we don't want to do too few of parking places. And we're looking at all the kinds of things that make sure that those who live there get that they get to park. And then we have to figure out how other people, we don't want to put the people who live there in a difficult situation of having to police parking, but we do want to make sure that there are opportunities for people to park, and that someone doesn't just come park their sometime vehicle or their not working vehicle and it never goes away and it takes up a space. Yeah.
At the last meeting we had on this topic, there was a slide that talked about the types of jobs folks might have who would live in these homes. And so someone online asked us to do a refresh on.
Thank you. So what kinds of jobs might people have to be in these homes? Work at QFC, work at the library, work at the school district, teachers, people who work at the mill, people who work at Edensaw, people who work at Carl's Building Supply, people who are professionals, people who are teachers, who are nurses, physical therapists, people who are wait staff in restaurants, people who do childcare. In fact, a question that I want to just put out there and answer is, will there be childcare available? We certainly hope that there will be people on this site who would do childcare, in-home childcare, but we are also looking to talk with others about whether we might include space specifically for childcare and what that would look like. The school district has very much encouraged us to partner with them so that there could be after-school care that uses Chimacum Creek Primary School for child care after school, but they don't have space during the day. So that's yet to be answered. So that's a number of the jobs. What other kinds? Bus drivers, people, yeah.
Boat builders.
Boat builders, people who work on the waterfront. Yeah. Retired people. I mean, people who are part of this community. Yep. Maria.
So we had a question that is related to the funding question asked earlier.
Yeah.
But that is, who will fund these homes? And especially in consideration of the land, wanting a little more clarity on the land arrangement, which you've gone into, but within the context.
Who will fund these homes? Those homes that are being sold will have mortgages on them. People who buy them will either, I expect most of those people will get a mortgage through a bank or credit union or another lender, a USDA, for example. In order to build those, we need money up front, construction money. Some of that will be construction loans that we're working with. Some of that money will be provided by partner organizations who are helping to make sure that this happens so that they can invest their money up front and see that their employees get housing and then they can get paid back later. And some of it will be donations and sponsorships. Habitat always has a gap in our houses that we build under 80% area median income. There is about a gap between the price we sell a house for and what it costs us to build of $150,000 per house. So as we build more homes, it is more expensive and it takes a lot. And our house sponsors, many people in this community have been very generous and helped with that. And that helps with a big part of that gap. It's not all of it, and it takes more than that. So as we press into this and expanding our business model, it's kind of funny to expand your business model and do more and make less, right? It's not necessarily your recommended business model, but it is what happens with Habitat. Those houses that are a little higher income people who will be buying them, we hope there won't be that kind of gap. That gap shouldn't be the large gap there.
I have a lot of clients who are on Social Security disability or some other very low incomes, and they need Section 8 housing or some kind of subsidized, thank you for the word, subsidized housing.
Yeah. So what about people?
Would be Section 8 eligible.
Yeah, it's a great question. What about people who need something that's Section 8 eligible, who are very restricted in their income? We don't have a full answer on that one yet. It will depend on who is ready to step up to owning those apartments that we would like to see built. The Section 8 voucher is a great opportunity that a landlord can get a part of their rent covered very solidly while that lower income person makes up the difference there, or the Section 8 voucher makes up the difference, however we want to say it. So we know that there's a need for it. We don't have an answer yet, and we are still looking for partners for the rental part. So send them our way. Yeah, Commissioner.
Another question I've gotten is there a way to guarantee or to incentivize this to be permanently, not just affordable, but workforce housing?
So is there a way to incentivize this to be permanently workforce housing as compared to not retire? So people would move out when they retire?
I think that there was the sentiment that was expressed to me was a concern that it would become you know, not accessible for people entering the workforce, or that people would get in so early, like, well, just, I mean, I don't know who's on the list already, but there might be a long list, and people who are entering the workforce wouldn't have an opportunity. So is there a way to keep some of the units? Or if the boat school, for example, sponsored a cluster, I mean, I can imagine that would permanently be.
Right.
It's just that workforce housing is such a need in our community. How do we make sure, as we're developing this opportunity, develop the guarantee that some percentage of this will be workforce housing?
Yeah, so how do we guarantee that this doesn't all become a retirement community? How do we make sure that this is available for those who work in this community who really need this housing? It's a real fair question. Those who come into Habitat for Humanity are typically our young workforce families. And typically at the point that they are able to do better for themselves, they have moved up, their income has increased, they may want something that's larger or on a little bit bigger property or something like that. And so we do have people turn over and resell their homes, and that happens with some regularity. 2 of the 11 homes we sold this last year, I think, were recycled homes where that happened. And we've got 2 right now that we're recycling that people have sold back to us. We expect that to happen in this community. And I think that will be, you will see that young people live in this community, young families with kids. I think it will be very desirable, and the prices will be kept at the point that workforce people can afford it and will be incentivized to live there. If we have partners that are interested in doing housing, we are looking at some different options of how they can actually designate and take priority by their coming in right now early on, and they're investing in helping to make some of that housing possible, that we could prioritize their employees for the future in a certain number. Let's say that they want to do 10. They want to invest in that. They would have 10 slots to recommend in there. And so we're looking at some different ways that might happen. We don't have a solid the model yet, but I'm hoping that we're going to be getting some of that as we finish up our master plan, because the master plan is more than the site plan, as you see.
I'm just sort of feeling like I need to sort of take back my suggestion, because I think that's true. This is really, the purpose of it is low income workforce housing. Lower income.
It is.
And I'm thinking like at the Methodist Church, we have that 50 units of low income senior housing. That's intended for people who are not working. Who are not capable of working anymore. Maybe that's a better answer for that group of people.
So
that kind of
she's bringing up the site that the Methodist Church has in Port Hadlock that is for low income senior housing that's really dedicated there.
Right.
We're not going to, at this point, we have no intention of excluding by age, but there is a very large need for that workforce housing.
Yes. I understand.
And I also want to mention the range of incomes. So Habitat typically does 40 to 80% of area median income. This one will go up to 150% of area median income. And just for your reference, 150% of area median income for a household of 4 people is about $110,000. 40% is significantly less than that. So it's a very wide range of incomes. We might be talking 40,000 to 110,000. So that's not low income. That's moderate income and lower income service worker. It's a mixed income community all the way. Yeah. Yeah.
Will there be a homeowners association or multiple associations?
Will there be a homeowners association? 1 or more? Yes. And And we'll see what that is. That is something still to be determined, whether there will be one or there will be a master one with some smaller ones. We don't know the answer yet. At least I don't think we do.
No. A couple other questions here. Have you planned in any spaces for services such as a medical clinic or retail?
Have we
Anything other than-
planned in any spaces for services like a medical clinic or retail? We haven't yet. We're still interested in hearing if there's strong feelings about that. But again, we're really wanting not to take away space from housing. But that doesn't mean we have completely ruled something out. If we heard a very strong need for that, we would be curious about that and listen. And another question?
Yep. Is Habitat open to more than 24 low-income rental units?
Is Habitat open to more than 24 low-income home rental
Rental.
units? So I'm just going to note that those are not necessarily low-income rental units. Those are a wide variety of incomes in that rental. It's just that some people want rental. They might be here for a time and they don't know yet if they want to live here. They took a job at, I don't know, Jefferson Healthcare, and they're trying it out for a year or two, and they're going to decide if they're buying in. So it's a wide variety there. And is there room for more? Yes, this site plan could be flexible. We could add in more rental. Some of these fourplex townhouses could become rental. We still are waiting for our the research, the needs assessment to come back to tell us a little bit more about the balance. Yes, and I know that the time is going past 6 o'clock. So if there are those of you who need to get home, we won't be sorry that we won't be upset at you for needing to leave, but we really appreciate your being here and all this great question and answer.
Well, we haven't talked much about maintaining the environment.
Yeah,
You could tackle that.
sure. You mean like upkeep of the area, maintaining the environment?
A safe area for habitat, et cetera.
Ah.
Habitat, animals.
Animal habitat?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might address that a fair amount, talking about the woods that we're leaving that area that will be the buffer with the stream, the stormwater infiltration will be really carefully managed there.
How will it be carefully managed?
Yeah, the homeowner association will have to be responsible for much of that. And they will have rules that will be in place that they will agree to as part of living in the community, that they understand, for example, those woods don't get to go away. The homeowner association couldn't decide to go cut it all down.
So the homeowners association is responsible for maintaining the whole landscape.
The homeowner association will be responsible for maintaining the property. Habitat will be the steward of the land and Habitat for Humanity, and we will make sure that that's happening. In some way in the governance of this, Habitat will continue to have a voice into the future since we'll own that land and care about it. But it will be those who live there who are responsible.
Will there be paid positions?
Will there be paid positions
For landscapers?
for landscapers? I don't have an answer for that. Yeah, Commissioner.
I just want to say that Habitat's already proven itself as a steward of the land there. You've done a ton of cleanup work, and I really appreciate the way you approach the property already. We would all live close to here and drive by probably 3 times a day. So I've seen a lot of activity and a lot of work parties and people picking up garbage, and I just really appreciate the spirit with which you started this project, and I'm super excited to see what happens.
Thank you, Commissioner. In short, for those online, the comment was about appreciation for the approach to the property and the stewardship of it already. I want to call out how much the neighbors have been supportive of that. I get emails from people who say, yay, you took away the mobile home, or yay, this looks so good. We're going to be getting together as neighbors and just going picking up trash. And it's like, really? That's awesome. So it has been really, truly a delight to be part together of the community. Yeah.
Is the the site plan on Mason, similar to what they've done over the last couple of years on Cedar, where there's gonna be a sidewalk and lighting? Because that's kind of a
Yes.
two-lane street with nothing.
Yes, will there be, what will happen on Mason? I bet that it will be similar to Cedar with a nice sidewalk, good lighting, walk to school safe. It does feel kind of barren there along Mason Street right now, and I think everyone will feel better if it feels like, oh yeah, it feels friendly to walk here.
One more
Yes.
site plan question, is a community hall or common house in the plan?
Is there a community hall or a common house in the plan? Mike mentioned the hangar, which you see by the oval in the middle kind of upper. It's right now shown as an open air covered site. We're not right now planning on a site, inside common building where that's heated and people go inside. That's not part of the plans, just to keep costs a little bit manageable, but it's a detail that still is in development. Well, let me say thank you to all of you for your time this evening and your investment and your care about this. Again, if you've come in late, you can get further updates. I'm going to send these around. A card that has a QR code so you can go to our webpage, or it has a web address so that you can keep in touch with what we're doing. An email address if you want to just tell us, please update me. And thank you so much for your time. Our board members, again, raise your hand if you're a board member, and our staff, yeah. We're around. I didn't do that for claps, but thank you for the claps for them. And we're around to answer more questions. Thank you so much to those of you online. If you have more questions and you want to interact, we're happy to. Thanks, Ellen and Mike, for coming out from Seattle for this. We really appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
And
Okay, everyone just explain it last to ask me to come.